Sheldon Schuster is the president of the Keck Graduate Institute of Applied Life Sciences, and I have been trying for 2 years to get him to come. And last year I was complaining to one of our board members that I have been trying for 2 years to get him to come, and she said, "Oh, that's my husband." So this small world of women's connections works out, and he's here. She's not, because she has to give a talk for National Academies. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of the busy professional couple, but we'll take either the man or the woman. He's a terrific person to talk to. One of the reasons I've been trying so hard to get him to come and speak is the fantastic program he's put together between business and science at the Keck Graduate School. And by the way, I don't even know if you saw this out there. This came to my office yesterday. This is From Science to Business. This was a workshop that was held out at Keck, and some fantastic Rosalind Franklin Society board members, some of you were there. It arrived in my office yesterday, and we got them to send us 20 copies today. So many of you will get this in the mail anyway, but it's a great report, and it touches on some of the things that Shelley will hopefully talk about today.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you. Is this on, or do I have to do something? Looks on. It's on. Yeah. It's on. Okay, I'll just speak. Good afternoon. I hate to be the last person between all of us and a wrap-up discussion. Let me just say, thanks, Carla, for inviting and being persistent. And I need to give you a little bit of background. The Keck Graduate Institute is one of the Claremont colleges, and it's a very different model, and I just want to mention it for a moment. And it's based on so we're in Claremont, California, which is in the eastern edge of Los Angeles County. And it's a very different model in that the way it works is, instead of putting things together the way most growing institutions do, sort of taking some from this college and some from that and some dessert, whatever, we start a new institution. And so the philosophy has been going on since the 1880s. Pomona College started in 1888. They decided they needed a graduate school, which became Claremont Graduate University. Then in their wisdom, they decided they needed a women's college. Scripps College, by the way, which both Susan and I have daughters that are alums, or actually students at the present time at Scripps. And then they formed, let me see if I can do this right, Claremont Men's College in 1946, which became Claremont McKenna College. Then they formed Harvey Mudd College in 1955, when the Mudd family decided they wanted to clean up their name. And people do know about that. Harvey Mudd was the doctor that shooted John Wilkes Booth. So anyway, they decided that was a way around that reputational kind of issue. And then Pitzer College was formed in 1964 as a women's college, and it lasted as a women's college for a couple of years, and it's now co-ed. So those schools have been around for a long, long time, and they've become very, very successful. And we like to boast in Claremont that Claremont has more top 50 liberal arts colleges than any state in the union. And so nothing was formed, however, since 1964. So there were a bunch of smart folks that got together in the mid-90s, and they sort of had this idea that, this biotech thing, this biosciences, we've heard several times, the biosciences of the industry of the 21st century. They thought maybe that wasn't just a bubble, maybe it was real. And there were no institutions in the United States, in fact, anywhere, that actually combined business and science and the life sciences. So we were formed with a very generous donation from the W.M. Keck Foundation, and we were launched. And it was actually launched in 1997. And we focused, and I have to say that model is an interesting model of starting new institutions. The advantage of it is you get to start with a completely clean slate. And all of you know there is no academic politics, so that wouldn't get in the way of any other. I'm sure you've never run into any of it. If I've been listening to anything in the last 2 days, I think I got that. Anyway, so you do get to start with a completely clean slate and decide what outcome you want, and then how to design a program and a curriculum and a faculty to achieve that goal. The unfortunate part of that is it's really inefficient. You build up 7 sets of infrastructure. We have more college presidents in Claremont than plumbers, so you can understand the sort of inherent inefficiency that we worship in Claremont. Anyway, so we were launched, and we started the professional science masters world. We were the first one in the United States. There's now about 300 of them, of us, whatever you will. And then something actually started because Susan and I, she's talking about Susan Wessler, who had these discussions, and we were saying, you know, what other areas of innovation could we use the kind of programs we put together? We had designed a team-based, hands-on, real-world curriculum which focused on a capstone experience, an extremely rigorous 2-year program in the Professional Science Masters that was more than 50% science, which was focused mostly on students that come out with a bachelor's level of science. And we said, oh, and it had in it a team master's project. These are industry-sponsored projects that go on for a year, very intense kind of a program. And we said, you know, what are the other areas where that might actually be useful? And it didn't take much imagination to say, what about the postdoc world? What's going on in that world? And what do we know about it? Well, I'll show you some statistics about it in just a moment. And all of this, the information I'm going to give you, I'm going to show you some data, unfortunately. But I want to profess that I am not a social scientist, so the surveys we did were non-scientific. They track along with the focus groups I did. But the first focus group we did to talk about what are the needs in the postdoc world, I did with, I arranged it actually at the University of Georgia, because that's where Susan was at the time. And she said, please, let me come along and just be a fly on the wall. Well, those of you who know Susan know she does many, many things spectacularly well. But fly on the wall is not really her strong suit. Okay? So we had a fascinating discussion with the postdocs at Georgia. We have about 30 of them. And it really shaped our thinking on into the next little while. So let me just talk about this whole arena and this issue of what does a workforce look like, and what are we sort of doing as educators to mold that workforce and help it succeed. Ooh, look at that. So first off, let me tell you, we've got this idea of the hybrid between business and science. And let me start with saying what it is not. Okay, when we talk to postdocs, what they think going into business means is doing basic science research in industry. That's not the hybrid. That's doing basic science and research in industry. It doesn't happen much. If you really want to do research in industry these days, you're going to have to go to India, because that's where it's done. Okay? What we view as the hybrid is using the deep scientific background, the understanding of data, the quantitative skills, the ability to use experimental design to solve problems in these kinds of areas in industry where they really need it, where there is actually a shortage of people with those backgrounds. Okay, so let's sort of talk from that, if you will. The reason I say that is because right now, if you look at pharma, and it's actually even more extreme in the non-pharma areas of life sciences, for example, the device industry, it's about 2% research. So about, depending on who you believe and which statistics you're ready to buy, a very, very tiny percentage of what pharmaceutical companies are spending is on research, and it's going down. So in the last 4 years, there have been 300,000 jobs that have been scratched off of the bioscience industry. More than 50% were in research. Okay, so now the issue is, well, is there some kind of a problem that needs solving? And let's talk about it. Let's talk about postdocs. And let's just talk about postdocs in the United States. And the first thing is, the best statistics we can come up with, because they're sort of buried all over the academic world, there are about 200,000 postdocs. About 90,000 are trained in the United States. The rest are trained outside the US. The average salary, this is last year, it probably hasn't changed, but is about $38,000 a year. I just did a focus group at UCLA 2 weeks ago, and I was sort of doing an informal survey, and the average salary there is about $32,000. I have no idea. The west side of LA, I don't know how you get dinner for $32,000. You know, it's crazy. Anyway, so that's the average salary. 40% of PhDs are in a postdoctoral position 4 years after their degree. Okay, and many, many, many of the ones who aren't have left science. And that's kind of, there's nothing wrong with being a piano tuner with a PhD. I'm not saying, or a barista. But it's an expensive role for our society to educate these young people, to train them so well, to give them all this experience, and then not really exploit it. And many, many that are hired as faculty have had at least one postdoctoral. You may have seen, I'm sure many of you have seen this statistics from the NIH website. This is the first year, I'm sorry, you can't, there's too much crud on here. This is for PhDs, this is the average age at first at first grant. It's now 42. Okay. I mean, that speaks for itself. Nothing else needs to be said. That's ridiculous. Okay. And now we said, well, what do postdocs think? And this is where I come back to what Susan and I had this discussion with the postdocs. We were just blown away by what we heard from the postdocs in that discussion. And so he said, well, is this weird? Is it because it's Georgia? You know, whatever. Well, it turns out, so we said, well, let's find out. And again, I apologize. We've done these surveys now over a couple of years. They are not scientifically validated. We did them, the biggest, and they're not distributed randomly around the country. The big bulk of them are actually the East Coast and the West Coast, like whatever. But I have also done 32 or 33 focus groups, and I don't see much difference. So we can talk about this. Anyway, these are 1,200 postdocs responded to this particular survey. So first off, what is your preferred career path? 62% say it's academic. Okay, and 28%, so about 2 to 1, say academic over some industry careers. Whoops, let me go back. Oops, doesn't have it. Okay, well, anyway, that doesn't have it on there. In reality, about 15%, depending on whose statistics you believe, will actually get any kind of an academic position. Okay, so there's a huge mismatch between expectation and the reality. Then we started asking some questions, and you're going to ask the question, do males and females answer the questions differently? And let me just tell you, we were not allowed by the UC union to ask that question. They would not allow us to use this survey at the UC postdocs if we asked that question. So I don't know the answer before you ask the question. Anyway, so we said, if you want to go get a tenure track position in academia, obviously that's what tenure tracks are, what are the most important things? So this is organized by what they gave the 5-point scores to, and it doesn't change much if you do it by 4. The most, and they're fairly sophisticated in what they seem to know overall. This, again, tracks with what we've talked about. Quality of journal publications, the number of publications, recommendations, that kind of stuff. What is absolutely remarkable, the lowest one is teaching. I will let that stand on its own. Oh, no, this is the other. Yeah, so what is the probability that we ask them, since they're all scientists, what do you think the chances are of getting a job in academia, a faculty job? And 21% say it's higher than 75%, 36% roughly say 50 to 75. Anyway, this is where the reality is. It's about 14% of postdocs will get any kind of a tenure track position in any academic institution. And that includes, liberal arts colleges and community colleges and things like that. Okay, for those wanting faculty jobs, what are you going to do if you don't get one? Okay, well, there's an incredible sort of stickiness in academia. Almost half of them say, well, I'm going to stay in academia. It's not clear what that means, but that's they've got it. And then some of them, 40% roughly, will say, yeah, I'm going to do something in industry. All right? And now we say, okay, what factors are most important in securing an industry job? Now, they at least got this one right. The teaching isn't particularly important for industry jobs. And then they actually are in some ways relatively sophisticated. They put formal skills and training at the very top. And I have to say, this was surprising that they actually did. It's a very significant number that actually answered it in that way, because that in fact is pretty much correct given what we've talked to with all of our advisors and the HR people that we consult with. Now, here we go. What is your career objective in industry? Research. Okay, those are the 2 top ones by a long shot. Almost 90% say they're going to go work in industry in research and development, or they're going to do basic research. Over 60% say they're going to do basic research in industry. Okie dokie. And then it's absolutely magnificent to do this and also to have this discussion with these extremely bright young people. They're going to do project management. They have no idea what that means. They think project management means being the boss, I think. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You put your finger. Project management? Do you know anything about Gantt charts? Nothing. Anyway, what is also really kind of interesting is the one area where they really could move into fairly quickly is law and patent kind of stuff, and that's down at the very, very bottom. So it's some interesting stuff here. You can really look at, and they have, you know, it just kind of falls off so fast. I mean, I think these are almost random numbers down here. Nothing else really registers with them as a career opportunity. Okay, now, the career which you believe you are presently qualified for, or could do it with a minimum of on-the-job training. Again, now somehow they can do applied research and development without training. That's pretty remarkable. They certainly could do basic research. No disagreement with that. Project management still stays up there. They can be the boss of the lab, right? However it is. And again, the lowest one, and we see this over, is the law and intellectual property, where they actually could contribute relatively quickly without an enormous amount of training. You know, you try to get some meta messages out of this, and a lack of sophistication is certainly there. And I also have to tell you, it doesn't show up in this, but the anger, the bitterness that you feel when you talk to these young people, it's palpable. I mean, I get to go to these things and I get to leave because they can yell at me all they want. I go to dinner after or something. But they're really very, very frustrated, and I'll tell you some of the experiences of that. Okay, they do know how competitive it is to get a job, and 50% say it's extremely competitive, or 30% say it's extremely very competitive. They get that. They're not, they do read some, and just we asked them, so just overall, how important is management training? And they pretty much they skew toward, yeah, pretty important. But then, and I just want to spend time with this for just a second. What are you going to do about it, essentially? What are you going to do, or what things do you think are important to get the skills and education you need? A big number are going to receive on-the-job training. They're also going to get this formal training from the employer. What they don't, I mean, this was the old days. They're sort of, as far as I can tell, they're a little behind in the literature, which is a little funny. But because the last time that Amgen, which has about 12,000 employees, I think, in Thousand Oaks, the last time they sent someone on their dime to get an MBA was 3 years ago. They don't do that anymore. When they're cutting positions, they're not going to be sending people to go get more training so they could be competitively disadvantaged and leave. They just don't. They give them educational benefits so they can go take any kind of courses, but nothing like that. It doesn't exist. Anyway, a very, very small number will say you need something like getting an MBA or some additional training. Very, very small number realize the level of training and the sophistication that you need to really work in industry using your science background. Okay. So what are the job opportunities in industry really quickly? And when I show this to them, I really get an interesting response. This was the 2011 Genzyme jobs. We went and tabulated it. There were 632 people that they hired. Right over there in research and development, there were 12. Okay, of that 632, those are real numbers. And about 2/3 of those were for master's or bachelor's level. This was not simply PhD. If you now look and compare that with the other areas where their PhDs really are useful background. There's no question about manufacturing. Now, Genzyme had special problems in manufacturing, so this may be a little bit skewed, but not outrageously. So I mean, the numbers in marketing, medical affairs, distribution logic, so they really could. Business development, biomedical operations are huge compared to the opportunities in research. And this is the kind of, at least a level of understanding that they have to have if they're going to really orient their careers toward where the actual jobs are. So there were 12 research jobs, or 504 jobs that we figure really would be really good for a young person with a PhD, and especially the life sciences. And that's the kind of ratio that we see all the time. And then, what do postdocs actually have to bring to the table? And really, out of a PhD, these are pretty good. They really do have those, and I think employers recognize it very clearly. The stuff that they need is this other stuff, and we don't have time to dwell on it, but I will tell you, you all recognize these kind of things. But business and management skills, these are not, what the postdocs tell us all the time is, well, give us an online course and we can learn this. And we won't do that. I mean, we could make a lot of money doing that, but that's not the point. You need your head to change. You need to do something really, really different, and you postdoc, need to change your attitude and come at it with a really different approach. It's not some course you're going to take in case you don't get the job at Harvard. This is a career choice, and it has to be made seriously. And there really also has to be a level of appreciation for business as a discipline. You know, it's not something you just pick up and wing it. It's really difficult stuff to be done right. The other stuff is this thing here, this teamwork stuff. And I can't tell you how often employers, corporations, our board members, our advisory council members talk about teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. And they really need to work in diverse, multicultural teams. They have to do that. They have to demonstrate it. They have to see the problems in it. They have to see the challenges in it. And they have to bring experience to that table. Okay, and just you know, every PhD I talk to says, well, I work in a team, and we have this debate about what's a team and what's a group. Okay, well, they're different. I mean, this is how I view a team in industry. And when you talk about the project management, this is somebody who has to manage this whole process to make a drug without the authority of everybody reporting to you and being the boss. How do you do that? It's a different skill set. It's not undoable. It's certainly doable. This is different. I'm not trivializing that in any way. It's just different. Okay. So what do you need to do? There are really three things, and I think we've certainly talked about it here. You have to build a network. That is absolutely essential. There is no question about it. As I'll mention in a minute, the last research job that Amgen had advertised, they had 3,000 applicants. Okay? I don't even know how a machine looks at the resumes. I mean, what do you look for? You know, the wrong font? I don't know. What the hell do you do? Networking is crucial. So we spent a whole lot of time moving all of our students into an arena where they're not only comfortable, but do a reasonable job in networking. It's one thing to say, I networked. Hi, my name's Shelley, I want a job. That's one kind of networking. It's not very effective, but it's a different kind of thing. So it's a learned skill. These aren't things that anybody can't do, but you need to learn and have experience doing it. The second thing, you really need to understand the industry. You need to know what the pressures are, what the opportunities are, and you need to be able to walk into an industry and not say, I'm really here to do your business development because I'm just out of college and I'm really smart, because you will be laughed out the door. Okay, you need to understand what it is they really need, what you can do to contribute to them. And it's not basic research, it's operations, making the things and making the groups work together so that they can actually produce the product to make money. The other thing is you have to have experience in doing some of the stuff. And there's lots of ways to gain that experience. I mean, obviously there's a chicken and an egg problem going on here, right? If they all had 5 years experience in industry, they'd have the experience, so we wouldn't be having this discussion. So let me just here's just this, you know, the question, here's sort of how we show it to the students, just real quickly. You know, those are the applicants. How do you stand out? And the reality is, people don't like to hire resumes. They kind of like to hire people. So knowing people is so important, building that network, using those opportunities. So, you know, and they literally will pick things out, throw things out if the periods aren't right, and if there's any misspellings and trivial things like that. Okay, so let's just move along here too. This is really important. And if you're going to get into this hybrid, if you're going to use your PhD in whatever area, it doesn't matter what it is, to do this real hybrid stuff, there's got to be an attitude change. There's got to be something that happens, and you have to show the commitment. And let me just sort of tell you how we sort of do it. This is way too much. Don't bother reading it. But so this is an experiment I did, yet another non-scientific social science experiment, and this involved 3 people, so it's really a statistically valid experiment. This was an ad I found for Human Genome Sciences. They wanted a senior engineer in antibody engineering, blah blah blah. You can read all that if you want, if you're bored. It doesn't matter what it is. And what I did is, so I took 2 postdocs, not postdocs in our program that I can tell you about, just postdocs. I mean, not just postdocs. Postdocs working in the laboratory, doing the usual postdoc thing. And I said, so let me know, you use yellow pen and overlay the parts that are most important in this job description. And then one of our trustees, Judy Habor, is the retired senior VP of Genentech. She was the VP of HR. And I said, would you do me a favor? I emailed her and I said, you know, highlight the parts that you think are the most important. And so this is my scientifically valid experiment here. I wish to publish it soon. Anyway, this was what the postdocs came up with. Innovative recombinant antibody engineering technologies, protein antibody, stuff like what they say. Antibody structure function, molecular biology techniques, display methods and high throughput screening selection, protein and antibody phage, the technologies. They focused on the technologies. Judy, on the other hand, had a completely almost non-overlapped list. This is the point you have to get across. It's a different set of skills. I mean, she was talking about leading a group, manage internal collaborations. I mean, the kind of things you would think about as having done the kind of stuff all of us have done for lots of years. That's the level that we have to get them to, and that's the change they have to make. Independence of research, things like that. Different sets of keywords. And so it's not that they're going to get their resumes kicked out because they have a typo. It's going to get their resumes kicked out because they haven't highlighted the stuff that's things like problem solving, communication, presentation. Those kind of things are what they assume you have a PhD, you have publications. Fine, that's great, you're smart. We get it. Okay, now what are the other things you can do? And that's a different presentation, if you will. Just one quick thing. The executive vice president of Amgen is one of our trustees. And he was talking about how he tries to train all of his new people, or tried, he's retired now. He said, because when you are a scientist and you present, you focus on the data. You want people to look at the data, the gels, the slides, the spectra, whatever it's going to be. When you're in a company, the CEO doesn't understand the data. He doesn't care about the data. He's focusing on you. He assumes if you're in the company, you're there because you're smart, you're competent, you have all kinds of colleagues that check the data. He wants to know about you as an individual. It's a different presentation. Okay, these are the kind of mind changes that have to happen, and they're not subtle. Okay, experience, yeah, how do you do it? We talk to the postdocs a lot about how to get involved in different kinds of things, getting experience, taking jobs that you might not think about taking, especially in things like sales. Postdocs just recoil at the thought of sales. I'm not talking about Fuller Brush Man here, you know. But by the way, they have no idea who the Fuller Brush Man was, but I do. But you know, carrying the bag, right? That's not what technical sales or technical marketing is. They're totally confused by that sort of thing. Anyway, and here's the other thing we tell them. I mean, they say a lot, saying, well, you know, give us an online course, we'll take the course, and then we'll be smart, we can go work in industry and run industry, because it's easy, right? Smart people are in academia, stupid people in industry, whatever. And so we say, look, at minimum, try a certificate. Some kind of certificates are fine. I mean, depending on what they are, they're uneven and they're not necessarily accredited, but okay, you know, any education is good. We're educators here, we support this. MBA, I get it. Everybody knows what that degree is. But what you have to understand with an MBA is that was a degree that was formed 1904, actually, to manage large organizations. It doesn't matter what the organizations are. Now, we started what we called the PPM program, and it is a pun on PPM. But anyway, it's a postdoctoral professional master's in bioscience management. It's a one-year program. I'm not here to peddle that program, okay? That's not my point. If any of you want it, that's wonderful and fine. But what I just want to do is use it as a comparison and talk about the kind of skills that I think you have to teach them. And by the way, that I think you can teach in a year, okay? So this is just a comparison sort of stuff here. What we do with our program, our focus is strictly on the life sciences. And we also feel that MBA programs aren't very rigorous. Now, if anybody has an MBA, you're going to argue with me, and that's okay. Because remember, I get to leave here too, right? So it's okay. But they're not particularly rigorous. Our students, there's a Drucker School of Management in the colleges, and some of our students take courses there, and mostly they're bored. So we figure we can work postdocs very, very hard, because they're very, very smart. And we will focus totally in the life sciences. So any case study we use, all of our teaching is case study. It's all in the life sciences. You're not going to learn about Boeing. You're not going to learn about McDonald's. You're going to learn about, you know, you're going to learn about Amgen or human genome sciences or those kind of things as cases. So we can focus it. So it's a one-year program. MBAs are two-year programs. Certificates are whatever they are. There are huge MBA program rankings. You can go look them out. We started this program. We're the best of one. I don't know what that means, probably nothing, but that's okay too. the most good MBA programs really require a certain amount of experience to get in. And the reason they do that is very clear. It's because the MBA programs in the United States are ruled by U.S. News and World Report. Okay? That's a little overstated, but not an awful lot. And so they're ruled by what their salary of their graduates is. And clearly, if you take young people with experience, their salaries coming out are going to be higher. It really works. So, you know, we don't have to worry about that. It'd be nice someday to worry about it. Our requirement to get in this program is a PhD or an MD. That's it. Anyway, so we try to have experience, and we try to spend a lot of time giving experience in our team masters arena and also in networking kind of stuff. And let me just talk real quickly. So we have 5 areas that we think the students need to absorb and get involved in. In the first area, they need to take management courses. Their MBA level management courses focus on the life sciences. Second thing is they need to know other stuff about the industry. Let me back up. When we started this program, I made 2 wagers. And I said the first thing is the postdoc students are going to just really wipe out the other students in their coursework. Because, you know, they have so much deeper technical knowledge and all this experience. And I said my second bet was they're going to have a really difficult time in team activities because they've never done it. So as is my usual betting and investment strategy, I lost both bets. And it turns out the postdocs really struggle when they start the program. I mean, they're in pain because they're not used to balancing 4 or 5 things at once, the time kind of differences. You know, they've worked hard. It's not a work hard thing. And I have to kind of be careful how I say this. You know, they were halfway to becoming faculty. I'll let that float for a while. Anyway, that wasn't recorded. I make sure that he turned the recorder off. Anyway, but so they weren't used to managing 5 different projects and team activities, and just the balance kind of thing. But you know, they figured out, they get it. They've all actually done quite well. And the other thing was they love the team activities. They absolutely thrive in it. And we have never had postdocs who have had a problem with it as long as they could keep the ego in check. That sometimes bears its ugly head. Anyway, they have to learn about this other stuff. The drug discovery process, clinical and regulatory affairs, and bioprocessing and operation. These 2 areas, by the way, are the lead areas for them getting jobs. Okay? You know, you got to love Washington, D.C. because clinical and regulatory is never going to go away. It's going to only grow. And the wonderful news for us and for them is it's going to grow globally. Right? Every country is trying to have its FDA. Works for me. You know, you can argue about any of those processes all you want, but it is clearly happening, and it is really an incredible set of opportunities for young people that understand the science, because it is but it is. The other thing is clinical trials are getting to be a larger and larger fraction of all of the costs of developing drugs, devices, and diagnostics, and that's good news because again, cost means jobs. Novartis just launched a clinical trial. I forgot what the indication was. The clinical trial is going to, they're planning on it costing $900 million just for the clinical trial. You know, this is a real opportunity. The other thing is bioprocessing and operations. I just want to mention, this is making the stuff. This is the kind of stuff where protein chemists, where biologists can really contribute because you have to make the same drug every time for every patient. That is a huge problem. And so things like quality, okay, quality assurance, supply chain management, production, you know, testing, lot testing, things like that. These are really important, and they require people with a very strong technical background. Okay, that one. Okay, then we also make them work on these team masters projects, and these are projects that we recruit from industry, and they're serious projects. We're the only program that requires team masters projects for our PSM or any of the other programs. We work very hard to recruit them. They cost $55,000 a piece for the company, and the company, even more than the cost for the project, they have to designate a liaison. So this is somebody who's going to talk with the students at least once a week, you know, remotely, whatever. It doesn't have to be in person. So this is the big cost, but these projects have been absolutely fantastic, and we get repeat customers coming back and forth. So, but these are great projects. I'll show you a couple of them in just a second here. And the, oops. All right, okay. Yeah, I just mentioned the STEAM projects. I'll mention again. These are last year's sponsors, by the way. These are all folks you know about, and I think most of them still exist. Did we kill any of them? No, we didn't kill any. This one's now bought by somebody. That one just got bought. But other than that, yeah, we haven't killed any of them. It was actually pretty funny because Amelin, the CEO, is a member of our board. They just got bought by Bristol Myers. But every time they would hire one of our graduates, their stock would drop, and we never could quite figure that one out. Anyway, these are the companies that sponsored the Team Masters project last year. And the last thing was this stuff here, this professional development. Meeting people, working with people in industry does not come naturally. Many of us who are scientists are, I don't remember the INFT stuff. What is that? Yeah, the Myers-Briggs. I don't know where we are, but most of us are fairly introverted, and it does not come naturally to just walk up to people and introduce yourself. It's a learned skill. We can all do it. You get tired after you do it, but you can do it, and you have to. And so we put a lot of effort into it. It's not boys, it's not girls, it's just all of our students. And the challenges we see, especially with this group, are, you know, they're very busy, so it's really easy to you know, not come to these kind of things because they're not required. So we have a lot of the problem of people RSVPing and then not showing up. And I mean, it's not just our problem, our student problem. You see that everywhere, right? I'm sure you've all done dinner and there are the plates, right? and it's just rude. But we've taken a pretty aggressive and paternalistic attitude towards it. So we now will charge them if they don't show up, things like that, because it's just ridiculous. We have to spend a lot of effort so that they get this part of it. It's not just the postdocs, it's all of our students. So we work on you know, mock interviews, resume building, industry resume books that we submit to different companies and things like that. It's really a team effort, and they have to learn, and these are all learned skills. Even things about how to dress. It can be a sensitive issue. We just deal with it. Anyway, we have networking industry tours and things like that you know, most places have thought of. It's not particularly. Anyway, I just wanted to just leave you with the thought that we would love to see more people involved in this whole arena. I think it's really a national problem. We want to maintain our competitiveness as a country. And we're taking and educating the brightest young people in the world, and I think, by the way, doing a really good job of it. I think our PhD education in the United States is really quite good. And then we kind of throw them off a cliff. And I think we have some responsibility, not just to them, but to ourselves as a nation to maintain our entrepreneurship and innovation. Let me just end with one thing. I had said we do a lot of recruiting and talking to postdocs out there. We did a special panel with the New York Biotech Association last spring. And, you know, it was fine. We had lots of people and whatever. We had to arrange it at a time when the postdocs could sneak out of the lab. I've never been told that about anything in education. But that's a tragedy that I think we do have some control over. I think faculty have to really, I don't know, sort of get off of the academic arrogance that if you don't go on and be a basic scientist like me, you're an academic failure. Anyway, I'm open to your suggestions and thoughts, and thank you guys all very much. It's been a great meeting. Thank you. Yes?
Well, the big question is what's your placement rate?
That microphone?
Thanks. I'm just wondering, the big question is what's your placement rate like?
Oh, okay, thank you for asking. Every single one of our graduates has a job within 6 months of graduation. We have one, it's not every, I mean, these are small numbers. We have about 40 graduates so far. 39 of them have jobs. One of them, after he graduated in May, decided to spend all his dad's money traveling in Europe. He's now run out, so he's back looking for a job. So yeah, it's been really successful in that regard.
And unlike law schools, they're real jobs.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. No, oh, yeah, we're not hiring them to mow the lawn and stuff like that. Yeah, they really are doing a lot. And I should say that a lot of them are actually getting jobs where we didn't expect in consulting firms. Interesting. I didn't, I mean, we're starting to see more of that with all of our graduates. I didn't think the PhDs would fit in that as well. But LEK and what's the other one? Oh, Campbell Alliance. A couple of companies are actually hiring a bunch of our graduates. So yeah, that's been really successful. We're really gratified by that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, two things. My brother founded Human Genome Sciences just for a laugh. And they did sell it, and it is disappearing.
Oh, okay.
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 That's why I was
What's the
laughing.
job? Was that
I don't know.
Job?
Vicky and
Who
I
did
were
they hire?
laughing.
I actually would like to know, yeah.
Yeah, he's very happy and
he's relaxed now that he's retired, and
he's fine. But the point about going to business school, many years ago I took a year off of sabbatical when I was a professor at Yale and went to business school. Now, that was at a time when we didn't have your school. I didn't get a degree because it was when doctors started getting degrees. However, there were several things, and I don't know if this would help in your orientation, but as you pointed out, that the group activities that these people do very well at, I found them fantastic. I found that the business schools thought just as actively as a scientist. It was just different.
Just as different. Absolutely right. Yeah.
And the one course, though, that I found has helped me the most throughout my career later, well, there were two: accounting.
Absolutely. Very useful.
And the second was group dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found out why I always misbehave in a group. And learned how to pull back from the table so I wouldn't do it if I didn't want to.
Those things you're absolutely right. That's what we find our students really need to learn more. They ask us, not so much this group, but the younger group, they say, well, teach us more leadership courses. You say, look, you know how you learn how to be a leader? Go work for a jerk for 5 years, and then work for somebody good. And then but those kind of things you can't, absolutely right. Group dynamics, organizational behavior, those kind of things are really teachable and really important because they do make a difference.
But you can't do it online. Those maybe accounting you can, but you can't do the other.
I 100% agree. You simply can't do it.
Thank you.
Wanted to do and worked with your wife. What were the statistics? What was the gender breakdown in that group?
Couldn't get it.
You couldn't get it?
Couldn't get it.
You couldn't get the information?
They wouldn't allow us to ask the question.
So this was UC?
UC. Yeah, they're the biggest.
Public institution, of course, and where the numbers of women on the faculty are going down percentage-wise, but okay, yeah.
So it's a union for the whole UC system, so we couldn't do it for any of the UC system. So it's a big chunk. I don't know what the numbers is percentage-wise, but it's a big. We did part of the survey
really
with the National Postdoc Association, and they were fine. They didn't care. They were cool about asking it. But then when we modified it to go with the UC, because there's, gosh, what's the number? It's like 8,000 postdocs in the union at the UC system. We figured that was just too big a number for us to ignore, so we caved. And we regret it. We're going to do it again. We're actually going to do this, update the survey, and we will do it scientifically, I promise. So, yeah. But anyway, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We wanted that data.
Yeah.
Yes, Susan.
Asked why a lot of these people could teach so low. And I think one of the reasons is that in many of these instances, English is not their first language. And teaching is something that is very difficult if you can't speak English well. So I find that with a lot of my people, they're not going to go, they realize that they're never going to be able to be good teachers at a university. So do you have this problem, I mean, with many of these people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have the same problems as everybody else. Yeah, about 40% of our students are international.
They're wonderful scientists.
Oh, there's absolutely no, that has nothing to do with it. You're absolutely right.
But this holds them back in some of these.
It does. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, in a research lab, it doesn't make any difference what language you speak.
That's right.
But once you start going out, then speaking is very important, and writing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought, absolutely writing as well. You're absolutely right, yes.
Many universities for degrees, various degrees, including PhDs, require teaching as part of the graduation requirements.
Right.
And so I think that would be helpful for this.
I think they should definitely do that. Absolutely right. No, they need that experience. It's just speaking, if nothing else, teaching.
No, it's good for everybody, because
I agree.
You have to be able to express yourself to write a good paper.
And I also think there's a piece there of when we advertise for faculty positions, you see it a little bit more now than you did, but emphasize the need for teaching. You have to actually teach. That is part, not all university positions, but certainly for those of us, not at the elite institutions, it's crucial. You have to be a teacher. So. Yes.
I had two experiences while I was a doctoral student, and both of these professors had Chinese-sounding last names, and I thought, well, since I can choose my courses, I'll talk to the other graduate students here, find out if they're okay, teaching. And the first one I asked about, everybody laughed because it ended up he was British and spoke better English than most of the people in the class. And the second professor really was Chinese and really did struggle with the language, but he had developed a style that overcame that. And he taught thermodynamics, and he was absolutely brilliant at it. And whenever he could sense that the class was struggling with a word, he would write it on the board. And that's the only time he wrote on the board, was just to get past this language barrier. And later on in my career, I was teaching international master's students and found that some of his techniques worked when they couldn't understand a Canadian accent. Because most of them had learned British English, coming from around the world. So it's quite interesting.
That is interesting. That's useful. Yeah, you have to be so flexible and self-aware. You have to know what people hear when you speak as well. That's real important. Yeah.
I want to thank everyone. Neil, did you have a last question? Yeah, for sure. Perfect.
Well, I didn't mean to monopolize the discussion. What you said, some of it applies to all fields,
Absolutely.
and some of it is really different, because the situation of the postdocs, or many postdocs that have difficulty finding jobs, is mostly anchored in the biological fields.
Exactly, you're right.
That in the fields where I work, we don't have similar problems. But our students do work in industry, and they should. So your conversations were interesting and important, and I knew most of the things that you said, I thought, just from experience. But we get some of these experiential factors as we go along in our careers for many of us. So that's another factor, that when you stop at the postdoc level, you don't get that. But if you've had, say, gone through 5 or 6 years of faculty assistant professor, and you don't get promoted, you have had some of these experiences that help you get a job in industry. Wouldn't you say that's true also in the biological fields?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question it is. The issue now is that there's so much, we're so well, I don't want to say overproducing. We are producing way more PhDs in the life sciences than there are possible jobs in the life sciences. Yeah, so for those who go on and get academic jobs, you're 100% right. They're going to get valuable experience doing it. And there's some, by the way, who will come out of a PhD and maybe a 1 year or 2 year postdoc and get jobs in industry, and they'll get that as well. The problem is, for the bulk of these young people, they're just not going to, they need to get the entry. And by the way, when you ask the question about the employment, they're not starting at a particularly high level. They're starting actually at the same level salary-wise as the master's students, just about right. It's in the high 70s. It's not, it's not a high, but compared to 38,000 as a postdoc, it's a real deal, man. They just think they died and went to heaven. So it's really getting the entry. It's getting your foot in that door when there's so many people trying to get in, which is now a real problem. And I have to say, the one thing I think is, we're hearing lots of discussions now, and I heard the president of the AAU talk about, well, we need to cut down the number of PhD programs. Well, I think that's the wrong answer. Science has never been more exciting. It should, why would we, what I think we should, imagine a world, if you will, where we had PhDs in Congress. There are no scientists in Congress. Who was that?
From New Jersey.
One guy just retired, though, or is retiring. Maybe he's still in.
No, this one's Russ Holt.
Russ Holt, but Holt's retiring, isn't he?
No, I don't think
I thought he was.
he's not retiring.
Well, the fact that we can name one, well, the fact that 1 out of 538 is not, or 2 even, whatever it is. The point, I think we all agree with the point. Oh, is that right? With a PhD?
But you're right, they're not enough.
Well, like I say, imagine a world with, where we really could sit down and list the 30 PhDs or 40 PhDs in science and in these kind of arenas. So, it would be a completely different discussion. When you have it is the chairman of the the science committee in the House that doesn't believe in global warming and, you know, evolution and all those opinion things, you know. Anyway, so the wrong answer, in my opinion, is cutting down the number of PhDs. I think that's silly. But I think giving them different opportunities really makes a great deal of sense. Let's use all this brain power.
On that optimistic note, thank you. I hope you all see why I pursued Shelley for 2 years to speak with us. I think it's a perfect ending to these 2 days, because one of our major concerns for women in science and scientists in general is choice. And this is a very, very important approach, I think. I just want to thank all of you, and particularly the speakers who are still here, certainly Professor Dresselhaus, who has so much to share with us and continues to. We thank you. And our younger presenters also, Yukiko and Jade, just great stories, and I hope you too look at Professor Dresselhaus and see what's ahead of you. Pretty exciting. And Woody, that data was great, and I think it got us all thinking about both where there is commitment, where there is work to do. We at the Rosalind Franklin Society surely know there's work to do, and that's what this meeting really focuses on for us, and that's the work to do. And I hope all of you got connections and follow up from this. I know we did. Marianne has left me with a long list. I will follow up on it, and most of it with all of you. So again, thank you so much, and we will begin tomorrow, Monday, planning another great meeting for next year, and I hope that we keep all of you on the end of the line talking with us. Thank you, and safe travels home.